Welcome everyone to our second ever Gundam card game video. I know it's been a while since we did the preview video, but I'm excited because last Friday on November 29th, they finally released the full rule set and a play sheet, kind of like a more intensive quick start guide. So the plan tonight is to look at that play sheet, go over as much as we can. We're gonna skip a couple things probably just because they're not pertinent to the video. And I'm also excited because on that play sheet, not only did they put the standard rules, they also put rules for the two multiplayer formats that are launching at the same time as the game is launching. As a reminder, the game is not expected to launch until sometime next year, between probably April and later, but starting in December of this year and going through the early part of next year, there's going to be beta trial events at your local LGSs and at different Bandai Card Fest. So if you haven't looked and seen if your LGS is planning to have one of those events, I highly recommend it. I'll try to link to it in the video description. But let's go ahead and get to looking at the rules. Okay, so here we go. So this is the Gundam card game. I believe they called it a play sheet on the website. This is not the comprehensive rules. I will link to both this PDF and the comprehensive rules document in the video description as well. One thing I will note is we are not going to be really looking at card previews. I'm going to save that for a future video. I know that they've been kind of previewing cards here and there, but the beta product isn't even like the full first set, and I just figured I just wanted to wait and see what everything was like once we got the whole beta card pool out. So expect that in a future video, probably soon, probably within the next week or so. So we likely aren't going to go over every single little thing, but we'll definitely go over all of this page and I'll give my thoughts on things. This is going to be very stream of consciousness. This is the first time I'm really looking at this, but there might be some things in the future that like we just briefly mentioned. So we'll start over here on the left side. Necessary for play. This makes sense. You need a deck. There's currently 4 card types: unit, pilot, command, and base. The deck contains exactly 50 cards. Up to 2 colors of cards may be included. Up to 4 cards of the same card number may be included. So pretty standard. I will say this up front that I'm not a big fan of limiting decks to 2 colors. I know that some games do it, but I just think that it's not as interesting as just letting people kind of figure out how to expand the game and how the game limits through mechanics instead of just color restrictions. But that's just me. You need a resource deck, which is 10 cards, token cards, so your EX bases, your EX resources, and any other tokens that your deck makes. And you need damage counters. So in the beta product, it includes dice where you can track damage, but you could use anything that you can put on the card or near the card to count your damage. So preparing to play, you ready your deck and resource deck, shuffle your 50 cards, place your 10 cards into the resource area. You decide who goes first, however you want. Bandai games almost always use rock, paper, scissors, and I think that's like really funny. Oh, thank you for the follow. You draw 5 cards to create your starting hand. This is important. This is the mulligan rule. Players may mulligan 1 time starting with player 1. When doing so, return your hand to the bottom of the deck, then draw 5 new cards, shuffle your deck when finished. This is pretty weird. When I played Digimon, I don't think the mulligan rule existed, but typically for games, you shuffle and then draw again. So this is like guaranteeing you're getting not those 5 cards you put back, which is kind of neat, especially because you only do it once. I think that's an interesting mulligan rule. And then you place 6 cards from the top of your deck into your shield area, one at a time, starting nearest to you and overlapping them. This is kind of like finicky that they worded this exactly how they want you to lay out the cards. Casually, people are just going to lay them out however is comfortable. But this is the typical shield system that a lot of Bandai games have. And then you ready your EX base and EX resource token cards. So everyone starts with an EX base, which is just a base that goes on top of your shield cards. I believe it has 3 HP. And then player 2 gets the EX resource because they start with a bonus resource to kind of even out going first and second. And then for EX resources, when paying cost, you rest the EX resource and then remove it from the game. So it's like a temporary mana or resource that the second player gets. Victory conditions. This is important, but I feel like it should be obvious. The game ends when either player wins by satisfying one of the following victory conditions. You deal battle damage to your opponent when they have no cards in their shield area. Battle damage is damage dealt by a unit according to its AP, or your opponent has no cards in their deck, which means that mill could possibly be a thing in the game one day, which will be fun. But essentially, it's like any shield system. You're trying to break through their shields plus their base if they have one. Shields are basically like one hit destroys them. Bases have an HP that you have to get through, and then you have to swing one last time at your opponent. Similar to One Piece, not similar to One Piece, but kind of similar. And then similar to Digimon is the thing that it's most similar to. Turn progression. So this is the structure of the game, which is highly important to know. Should be pretty standard except for a couple things. So start phase, you set all rested horizontal cards as active. This obviously isn't happening on turn 1, but from turn 2 on, this should be happening. Hopefully you're doing stuff. And then you go to your draw phase, you draw 1 card. And then your resource phase, you draw 1 card from your resource deck and place it into the resource area. So that resource deck of 10 cards, you basically go up 1 every turn, similar to Dawn and One Piece. And then we get to the main phase. So during the main phase, you may play a card from your hand, activate main ability, or attack with a unit. These actions may be performed any number of times and in any order. So stop here for a second. This is basically how Bandai games like Digimon work, where you can do anything in any order in your main phase, and that's part of like the sequencing of the games. Do I attack first? Do I play something first? Does this need this buff first? Do I play things at the end? Like, there's a lot of play in games like that. But in general, it's a main phase. You attack, you play your main phase cards. Play a card from your hand. Cards in your hand whose level requirements are fulfilled may be played by paying their cost. So the way level works is, you can see here, there's a level 3 here. A card's level requirement is fulfilled if you have at least that number of resources in your resource area. So you have to have 3 resources out on the table to play the card, but the card only costs 2. So you only have to rest or tap 2 of the 3 resources you have out. And it's just a way to like scale the game. It's a way to be like, okay, level 5 things can be stronger even if they cost less than 5 because you had to get this far into the game. And they are confirming here that the EX resource, this kind of gold, orange, blue resource, is an EX resource. The extra resource that player 2 gets does count for counting for the level. That's good to know. I saw some people mentioning in a video about a week ago that they didn't confirm it, but this seems to confirm it. So 3 resources out, tapping, resting 2 to pay for this card. Deploying units and bases. Unit cards are deployed into the battle area. Base cards are deployed into the base section of your shield area, so same as the EX base. Units cannot attack on the turn they are deployed, but they can attack starting from your next turn. So in this game, things have summoning sickness. I think most Bandai games have summoning sickness, so it's not that weird. There's a pretty significant way around it in this game that I'm sure we'll get to. Card limits. Now this is another interesting thing. Up to 6 units and 1 base may be deployed. If deploying a unit or base would exceed the number allowed, choose a card already present and place it into your trash before deploying the new one. So 1 base makes sense. It's basically a 7th super shield card. In the flavor of the game, you would only have 1 base. The 6 units total for me is kind of weird. I just don't typically play games that have a unit limit. I can kind of see it, although it does make me a little worried that the game's not going to have any like true go wide strategies, because if you're limited to 6 doesn't seem like an insurmountable number for most decks to get to, but we haven't really seen enough cards and enough decks to like know if that's true or not. It could just be a speed thing. Maybe you can get to 6 units way faster than another deck and they have to like catch up. I'm interested to see how it plays out, although this is something that's like kind of awkward for me. I do like that you can play things and just remove whatever your weakest thing is or whatever is not helping you. Same with your base in your shield area. If you drew a base that's better for your situation now, you can just play it and trash the other one. This does remind me of Runeterra, which also has like a unit limit, but we'll see how it goes. I did like that game, so this isn't like a negative for me so much as like I'm curious. So pairing pilots. A pilot card is paired with a unit in the battle area by placing it underneath the unit. Each unit can pair with 1 pilot. A command card with the ability pilot may be paired with a unit as a pilot instead of activating its command ability. And then I'll read the next part. But basically, pilot's one of the card types over here. They give an AP and HP bonus to the unit they're paired with. Some commands, which are the version of this game's version of options from Digimon or events in One Piece or instant sorceries and Magic, some of them have a pilot at the bottom underneath their effect, and basically like you can choose to play the pilot and just buff up your unit, or you can play the command and get the effect. So it's actually a really cool way to like have 1 card be 2 things, but just give you the choice of like what you need at the moment. And then link units, we're back down here at this white card. When a pilot is paired and the link requirements are fulfilled, that unit becomes a link unit. Link units can attack immediately on the turn they are deployed. So this is kind of interesting, but it requires kind of explaining 2 things. So link units are, you can't really see, but at the bottom of some units, there will be a specific pilot's name or a trait. So it'll say like Neo Zeon, which means any Neo Zeon pilot that has the Neo Zeon trait can be a link with that unit. This one might say like Kira Yamato because it's the Strike Gundam. So if you stick Kira under here, you pay the cost, then this unit no longer has summoning sickness. So it's like if you have the resources on the same turn to go Strike Gundam Kira, then it can immediately attack. The thing that they might explain at some point, but isn't really explained like right now, which is probably where I would have put it, is some units have abilities that say when paired X happens. So it'll say like when paired, uh, this unit has breach 3, which I don't know if it's going to come up, but like we might explain it later. Or when paired, this unit has high maneuverability, which is it can't be blocked by other units, things like that. I believe that's what that ability does anyway. Someone can correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. So linking or piloting anything gives you the when paired ability, as far as I'm aware. But the only way to give things haste or get past the summoning sickness of the unit is to match the name at the bottom of the card with the pilot that you're linking it with. Hopefully that makes sense. So you always get the effect, but you don't always get to attack right away, is my understanding. All right, command activation. Only command cards with main timing may be played. So there's basically like timings in the game on command cards, and it'll either say main or action. Only command cards that say main can be played during your main phase. But as far as I know, they all say it right now. Who knows about the future or if I've missed anything. Like I said, I haven't been paying super close attention to the preview cards. So it'll say activate and activate main ability. Activate main abilities on cards may be activated. So these are cards that are already out. So a lot of bases have activate main abilities, and those just mean you can't do them on your opponent's turn. Makes sense. Unit attack. So this was the playing your cards part of the main phase. Now we're on the attacking part of the main phase. Follow the steps below when attacking with a unit. 1. Attack step. Interesting. Rest the unit you wish to attack with and declare a target. Choose either a rested enemy unit or your opponent as the target. Units deployed this turn cannot declare attacks with the exception of link units. So we just talked about that. Basically, in a lot of Bandai games, you can either attack your opponent, which means attacking the shield area until they have no more shields, or you can attack things that are already rested on the battle area. I could be remembering wrong, and if it doesn't exist now, eventually I guarantee there will be an ability that lets you attack non-rested units, attack active units, so you can attack cards that are up and down vertically. But typically it's only rested units. Block step, the opposing player may activate blocker or on a unit with that ability and change the attack target. So blocker is kind of like, it's just attack redirection. So if you're attacking the player or a different unit and they don't want you to attack either of those things, they can rest their blocker unit and you will be attacking that instead. 3. Action step. This is one of the like twists of the game that I know other Bandai games have had things like this before, but typically these kinds of like IP-based games don't really have them. The following actions are performed during an action step, starting with the defending side. So let's pretend we're going through an attack. I attack my opponent. They decide to rest their blocker to redirect the attack to that unit, and then they take turns performing actions, defending side, attacking side, defending side, and so on. Activate a command card with action timing. So the person defending gets to play their action timing commands first, and then they can activate an activate action ability. So if they have something on the battle area already that has an activated action ability, so essentially instant speed action ability, and then they pass. When the attacking and defending sides pass twice in a row, the action timing ends. So they get priority essentially. They can either activate, or they can either play an action card or activate an action ability, then they pass back to me. I can do it, and then we pass, and if they don't have anything they can do, it passes to me, and then the action timing phase ends, and we continue to the damage step. It's basically just giving like instant speed interaction during the combat part of the game, which is nice to see. I know in Digimon now they have like Ace Digimon that kind of do the same thing, but it's not as interactive. Like there's not really a back and forth as far as I know. But I haven't played Digimon in a long time, so this is nice. This is like a nice little complexity addition that they've added to the game. So step 4, damage step. If the attack target is an enemy unit, both battling units, attacking unit, and the targeted defending unit simultaneously deal damage equal to their own AP. So right now, someone, again, comment if they've shown an ability where you can attack an active unit. But right now, if you attack a unit that's blocking you, or you attack a unit that's already rested, you will deal damage to each other. If the attack target is the opponent, if the opponent has a base, deal damage equal to the attacking unit's AP to it. If the opponent has no base, deal damage equal to the attacking unit's AP to their first shield. Treat each shield as having 1 HP. Receiving 2 or more damage, steel only destroys the first shield. If there are no cards in the enemy shield area, damage is dealt to your opponent. If you deal damage to your opponent, you immediately win the game. We kind of went over this already, but basically, bases are super shields. They have an HP. Let's say your base has 5 HP and your attack is 3 AP, then you will deal 3 damage to it. It will have 2 HP left, and then you have to deal 2 more damage to it somehow. The shields, there's no trample essentially, like your damage doesn't go over, you just break 1 shield at a time. Maybe there will be an ability at some point that lets you break multiple shields at a time, but right now it's just 1 shield at a time. So pretty simple. And then down here in red, damage management. When a card receives damage, place the number of damage counters equal to the damage received on top of the card. A unit or base that receives damage equal to or greater than its HP is destroyed and placed into the trash together with any paired card. When a shield is destroyed, reveal it and place it into the trash. If the card has a burst ability, that ability may be activated when the card is revealed. So when your unit is destroyed, if it is paired with a pilot, the pilot is also destroyed. I'm curious if there's ever going to be abilities that are like pilots that say like if this is paired, then bounce it back to your hand when the unit is destroyed, because there are self-eject buttons in Gundam sometimes. And then burst, similar to other games, basically when a shield is destroyed, you look at it, and if it has burst, then you do whatever the burst ability says. A lot of the time it will just say activate its main effect, which means you just play the card and then it goes to trash. Sometimes it might say like put it into your hand, and sometimes it won't have a burst ability. We'll just have to see how everything plays out. So they're just giving some examples here with images. Interesting that you count up on the dice. I guess that makes sense because pairing a pilot with a unit raises the HP, so it's just a little easier to count up. I prefer things where you count down because it's easier to see, like, okay, I see a 2 on the dice, I need to do 2 more damage, instead of being like, okay, I see a 3, but you need to tell me how much HP you have left because I don't know. And then they're just explaining how burst works down here. And then 5, end of battle step. Abilities that state during this battle lose their effect. The unit's attack ends. Okay. Makes sense. It's just end of attacking. Things end. And then 5, the end of the turn, end phase. Follow the steps below during the end phase. One action step occurs. So this is another, to me, this is like the most exciting part, is like currently, as far as I know, in Digimon, the only like instant speed part of the game is during an attack. They've basically doubled it by saying you get an instant speed action step at the end of the turn, which is cool. You can probably like set up for your own turn more easily. You can hold up resources and stuff. That's really fun. 2, resolve any abilities that activated at the end of turn. 3, all temporary abilities that took effect during the turn lose their effect. 4, if you have 11 or more cards in your hand, discard cards of your choosing until you have only 10. So, confirmation that the maximum hand size is 10, which is quite large. You start with 5, and you can go up to 10. So that's interesting. Once all of the above steps have been resolved, it becomes your opponent's turn. So that was a in-depth overview of the turn structure, and I'm liking what I'm seeing so far. There's very few things that I didn't like about that. I really like that there's 2 different action steps during a turn. I remember reading somewhere, and I could be wrong, so take this with a grain of salt, that both players draw on their first turn, and there's no note here about that not happening, so I have to assume that's true. But second player does get the EX resource, the temporary resource. This is 2 recommended decks that are from the beta box. What we're gonna do is we're gonna read some of this left side to kind of go through like the general deck building process. We're gonna read the playing the deck parts, but we're not gonna go over every card because we're not previewing cards in this video, and so just seeing how they play will kind of inform people a little bit. But the main thing is we want to go over the deck building stuff, just so people can know how to quickly build decks and kind of like mess around with the game. Again, I should say that there are a few gameplay videos out. The main reason I haven't made one is because I just didn't want to make decks or mess with the game until the whole beta card pool was out, which should be happening fairly soon, and then hopefully I'll be making some gameplay videos at some point. But it's just not really my style. It's totally fine to do that, and I definitely recommend you check some of the gameplay videos out that people have made. But let's go through this. We can ignore this top part. It's basically what we already went through. And then we'll start here, below the card images. So the following number of each card type is recommended for a good balance. 25 to 28 unit cards. They are how you win the game. 6 to 8 pilots. This number seems kind of low to me. I imagine you want link units and like to get the abilities more often. 8 to 10 command cards. That seems a little high to me, but they're definitely counting the command pilot cards as commands, so I could see this being a lot closer to like 6 actual command cards and way more pilots just because they are on the commands, and then 4 to 6 base cards. I've seen people say that this feels like a lot, but I think it's important to basically have one in your hand at all times. So that number makes sense to me. The pilot number is the only thing that feels a little low. I'm not sure 25 to 28 units doesn't seem like a tiny bit high, but we'll just have to see how it plays out. And then below that, You might not always be able to achieve the above balance depending on which cards you own. Substitute extra unit and base cards for any cards you lack. So that's actually really nice of them to be like, hey, you don't have to be optimal. If you don't have like the perfect cards, then you should still play the game. I actually like that they put that in here. Let's take a closer look at card levels, including 16 to 20 unit cards that are level 3 or lower will help your opening turns play more smoothly. Have fun playing with your deck while you find the balance you prefer most. That makes sense. Also, really high. I don't think that this number is going to be accurate in the end. If you look at other games, the curve of like how you build a deck typically would not work like this. You wouldn't have this many, because that would be what, like 6, 8 level 2s. I don't even know if there's. I'm sure there are level 2 units, and then 8 level 3s. Like that's a lot, and then that doesn't really give you a ton of room for 4, 5, 6. I imagine most decks are only gonna run like 2 to 4 level 6, depending on if it's like a ramp deck or not. But I think it's gonna tread a little bit lower, if only a little bit. Let's take a closer look at link requirements on unit cards. Some unit cards have link requirements. A unit normally can't attack on the turn it is deployed, but pair it with the pilot listed in the link requirements and it can attack immediately. Add pilot cards to your deck that match the link requirements for your units. So that makes sense. If you're playing Wing Gundam, you probably want to have as many hero Yuis as you can because it will be its link pilot and you want to be aggressive and be able to attack on the turn you play Wing Gundam. Be sure to include command cards that can be used during action timings. You can use command cards with action printed on them while units are battling and at the end of each turn. Using them effectively will help swing battles in your favor. Yeah, we kind of talked about this already, but having 2 action timings during a turn is really nice. You definitely want ways to utilize that to surprise your opponent and kind of gain advantage when it's not your turn. So now let's try putting a deck together. Start with a favorite unit and pilot card combination. Makes sense. Continue adding cards of the same colors while following our balance recommendations. Double check you haven't accidentally added a third color, only 2 colors allowed. Still kind of disappointed by this. Count up how many units in the deck are level 3 or lower. 16 to 20 is ideal. Your deck is ready. So, makes sense. This is a really, really quick, easy guide for new players. I will definitely like be sending that to people when we start playing games to be like, hey, we're just trying it out. Just follow this guide. I would err on the side of 16 level 3s or lower, just because like the higher level, the more exciting the unit probably, and just having exciting cards is more exciting. Who would have thought? I'm gonna reiterate this forever. I talked about this a little bit on stream before we started recording this video. I'm gonna be disappointed by the 2 color limitation for like ever, but it's not enough to deter me from the game. So let's look at these 2 decks very briefly. We're just going to look at playing the deck essentially. So this is a blue-white mid-range deck that uses the RX-78-2 Gundam, so the Gundam from the original series, and the Ale Strike Gundam from Gundam Seed, and it is a blue-white deck. So, opening turns, deploy lighter units like Strike, Dagger, and Roselle. Strengthen units by pairing them with pilots if you have any in your hand to improve their battle odds. Player 2 can deploy a level 2 unit right from the start using their EX resource, and a level 2 GM that costs 1 can be deployed without consuming that EX resource, making it even stronger. So just more confirmation that the EX resource does count for your level. The mid game, Ready a unit and a pilot in your hand that can link, such as Gundam and Amuro Array, then wait for the perfect moment to launch an attack on your opponent. Since link units may attack immediately, you can also wait until a rested enemy unit is in the battle area to aim for a destructive attack. The late game. Even if the game runs long, adding cards to your hand with a show of resolve and creating unit tokens with white base will provide you with plenty of battle endurance and keep pressure on your opponent. When the opportunity finally arrives, attack the opposing player with a link unit such as Kira, Yamato, and Ailstrike for victory. So I've seen some of the blue and white cards. Again, we'll make a video in the future going over all of the beta cards, but blue seems to be about card advantage like it is in most card games, and white has a lot of blockers and ways to disrupt your opponent by I believe like bouncing things back to their hand, if I remember. So it sounds like this is kind of the typical mid-range deck where you are playing out a unit and then using your action timing or the unit that's linked up to disrupt your opponent, kind of doing one-for-ones, just like a mid-range deck will do. The one below that is a green-white ramp deck with Wing Gundam and Gundam Aerial. They are level 5 and level 6. Opening turns. This deck aims to deploy level 4 or higher units before your opponent has a chance to catch up. Unit cards... A chance to catch up using cards like Wing Gundam, Bird Mode, and First Contact to increase your resources. If you fail to draw those resource increasing cards, don't panic, you still have plenty of units to play. The mid game, if you succeed in increasing your resources, start laying on the heat with mid-level units like Shenlong Gundam and Gundam Sandrock. Aim to deploy Gundam Aerial when there are no level 5 or higher units in the battle area. This unit only costs 1 if you have 4 command cards in your trash, an efficient and powerful effect. The late game, the link unit pairing Wing Gundam plus Hero Yui is extremely powerful, so try and gather those 2 cards in your hand using cards like St. Gabriel Institute and Overflowing Affection. Destroy an enemy unit in a battle and breach deals damage to the enemy shield area, so every enemy unit you wipe out will bring you that much closer to victory. So yeah, Wing Gundam seems fairly powerful. It was one of the first cards previewed. It has breach 3 or 5. I think it's 5. The image is very small on my screen, but essentially when you deal damage to a unit, it has piercing. It will deal damage to the shield area as well. Seems really good. It is interesting that these both have white in them, but I think that blue, white, and green are the main colors in the beta card pool. I think there might be a few red cards, but not enough to really flesh out a deck with them. This just feels like an aggressive ramp deck with some kind of tricks in it that focuses on commands too, which is interesting. If you look at the list, we're not going to go over every card because we don't know some of them, first of all, but we're not going to pull up all these cards. Definitely not optimal. This is a game where you can play 4 ofs of every card. For people who play card games, you know that playing as many 4 ofs as you can for consistency is important. The way the logic works is if you want to see the card all the time, you play 4. If you want to see it once a game, basically guaranteed, you play 3. If you want to see it, but you don't need to see it every game, you play 2. And if it's a very tech card that you just only ever need to see once in 10 games, you play 1. And you just find ways to dig for that 1 card. So, yeah, this is cool. I actually think the deck guide was very good. They made it very casual friendly, which I think is important for a game that's this new. And the how to play the 2 sample decks was very useful. Really laid out what you should be doing in your early, mid, and late turns. And yeah, I'm excited to see what people do and how the community actually ends up building these types of decks. Again, there are definitely preview gameplay videos out if you want to see how people are building these colors of decks currently. I personally am kind of interested in a green-blue deck. Um, Getting the card advantage and the ramp just sounds like a good time, even if it's not as defensive as the white color seems to be from what I've seen. But let's continue and see what's on the final page of the play sheet. Okay, here we go. This is what we're here for. So surprisingly, the game is actually launching with 2 multiplayer formats. So this is the last thing we're going to be looking at. I'm especially excited about this because I'm hoping to be able to make multiplayer content if I can get enough friends to, commit to maybe one video a month or something. It will just be cool to showcase like multiple decks at a time. I won't need to or be able to make multiple gameplay videos every month, so I think that's a fair trade-off. If everyone's playing a different deck, then I can make one video on, Tabletop Simulator for now probably, but one video a month, and that will showcase a lot of playstyles and things in the game. So hopefully that happens. I'm looking forward to it. But let's go ahead and look at these 2 different multiplayer formats. The first one is team battle rules. Player count 4. Makes sense, you need a team. I'm slightly less excited about this one, but it should still be a good time. These rules are for team battle cover. Oh my god, I can't talk. These rules for team battle cover multiplayer matches between 2 teams consisting of 2 players each. Each team proceeds through each turn phase as a team rather than individually. The rules for deck and resource deck construction are the same for standard play. So, truly just multiplayer versions of the game. Preparing to play, each player readies a deck and a resource deck. The rightmost sitting player is the team leader. The team leader uses a method such as rock, paper, scissors to decide which team goes first. Each player draws 5 cards from their deck to create their starting hand. Players may mulligan their hand 1 time, starting with Team 1. Each team deploys 1 EX base, and players on Team 2 place 1 EX resource card each. Begin play starting with Team 1. So, essentially, basically the exact same, but you're just 2 people instead of 1. So, just like Two-Headed Giant and Magic, setting up the game's basically the same. You get double, but really you're just like 2 players, and you're 2 players using 1 mind, however you want to think about it. Team battle victory conditions. If either of your team members' units deals battle damage to the opposing team when they have no cards in their shared shield area, your team wins. If either deck of the opposing team has no cards in it, your team wins. Okay, going back to the preparing to play, each player places the top 4 cards of their deck into the team's shared shield area. Okay, so you put the shields between you when you're on the same team, and there's 8 cards instead of 12. That makes sense. Makes the game not go as long. 12 shields would be kind of crazy. You'd probably all run out of cards before you manage to do that. And you have 1 shared base. That's cool. So you can both players can decide together which base is more important right now. When you're playing team games, you build your decks to complement each other or cover weaknesses. So that's actually really fun. And then if either person mills out, you lose the game. And I think that's fair. I wouldn't want to make my teammate keep playing. Rules differing from standard play. A team shares a shield area, but each player manages their own shields. A team can only deploy 1 base. Damage is dealt to the very first shield in the shield area. Both players on a team proceed through their team's turn simultaneously, and all phases and action timings are performed as a team. Discuss card playing decisions as a team. If there's a disagreement, the team leader has final say. For abilities that refer to a friendly unit, you may choose a teammate's unit as well. If you or your is indicated, it refers only to the owner of that card. When attacking with a unit, you can attack one of the opposing team's rested units or the opposing team's shield area. One of your units with blocker can be activated even if a teammate's unit is attacked. Team members are free to share information and strategies, with the lending of any cards, sharing resources to fulfill level requirements, or paying a team member's card cost is not permitted. All standard team stuff. I'll say that one part of this makes me very happy. So, in Magic, if you play Two-Headed Giant, you can't block for your teammate, but you can block for your teammate in this game, which is nice. That's actually like really nice. It never made sense in Two-Headed Giant because you share a life total. Like, you should be able to block. But yeah, that sounds good. I'm glad that they like lowered the total shield count. Just have to use different sleeves essentially, but that should be easy enough to do. But here, this is what we're here for: the Battle Royale rules, a free-for-all for 3 or more players. So this is the format I'm hoping to like make gameplay videos for. So I'm definitely interested in this. These rules for Battle Royale cover multiplayer matches between 3 or more players. The rules for deck and resource deck construction are the same for standard play. Makes sense? Preparing to play. Words. Each player readies a deck and a resource deck. All players use a method such as rock, paper, scissors to decide who goes first. Each player 1 then chooses either clockwise or counterclockwise. People are always going to choose clockwise, to be honest. It's just like the standard. Each player draws 5 cards from their deck to create their starting hand. Each player, starting with player 1, can mulligan their hand 1 time. Each player places the top 6 cards of their deck into their shield area. Each player deploys an EX base, and all players except player 1 place an EX resource. So, player 1 is the same as a normal game. Players 2 through 3 get the EX resource. So definitely like a little bit of an advantage for those 3 players, which is interesting. Begin play starting with player 1 and continuing either clockwise or counterclockwise to the next player. That's kind of interesting because people in Commander for Magic talk about all the time, how can we make the going fourth feel better? And people always say things like, oh, you can look at the top card of your library and like put it on the bottom if you don't want it, or you draw an extra card, or things like this. I don't know if this is the solution, but like having a temporary resource for the 4th player feels good. Having a temporary resource for players 2 and 3 feels a tiny bit too much. I don't know if like 3 to 4 would have been my sweet spot, or just the 4th player, but we'll see how it plays out. Victory condition. You choose one of 2 different victory conditions. Interesting. Winner takes all. The first player to deal battle damage to another player and defeat them wins. Unlike the victory conditions for standard play, when a player's deck has no cards remaining, that player is removed from the game. Okay, so let me make sure I understand that. So it's like, if you're playing winner takes all, it's when one person dies, whoever did the finishing blow wins. Them milling out does not count as winning, it just removes them from the game. So you actually have to deal the lethal blow to an opponent to win. Let's see what the other one is. So last player standing, the last player to remain undefeated wins. If any player takes battle damage when they have no shields in their shield area, they are defeated and removed from the game. If any player has 0 cards remaining in their deck, they are defeated and removed from the game. So this is standard multiplayer rules then, where it's just like, you want to be the last one alive. That is probably what most people will play. The winner takes all sounds fun for like an extremely like, okay, we have 40 minutes, let's try to jam a game super fast, let's do winner takes all, because the most aggressive strategy will probably be the way to go if you only need to beat one person out of the 3. I kind of feel like that will lead to like awkward moments where you're playing winner takes all and everyone sort of just picks on someone because they're just trying to end the game because they need to go somewhere. I definitely think last player standing is the way to go. It's definitely what I will play. And then finally, rules differing from standard play. Turn phases proceed the same as in standard play. Players' turns proceed clockwise or counterclockwise as determined by player 1. Enemy or opponent is indicated. It refers to any and all of the other players. When attacking with a unit, you can attack any other player's rested unit or any other player. Okay, makes sense. I don't know why that would confuse me. Action timing starts with the player whose turn is next and continues in order until all players have chosen to pass. So, typical multiplayer priority or opportunity, whatever you want to call it. I attack, we go through blockers, we go to the action timing, the next player gets to decide if they want to do something, and then the next one, and then the next one, and then it goes back to me, and then if I do something, it like repeats until everybody passes, essentially, is my understanding. So looking at the if enemy or opponent is indicated, it refers to any and all other players. Kind of thinking about that more. I can't remember. I don't think there's any cards that like affect all units of an enemy or anything. From the few cards I've seen, I think I remember one that was like select 1 to 2 enemy units and do something. So it would be like you can pick 2 from one player, or you can pick 1 from 2 different players, and I think that's how that would play out. And this is how the mats are laid out. Kind of interesting. Obviously, like if you're right-handed or left-handed, it will change how you lay everything out. But interesting that you don't have less shields when you're playing free-for-all. I guess the idea is that you are all attacking, so like you're hopefully not actually having to take down 16 shields plus a base from each player, or plus 3 bases total, and you're all doing stuff, so it's maybe doesn't seem as much as it does on first glance. I wouldn't have minded them dropping it down to 4 like they do technically in the team play, because it just might make games a little faster. I'm sure people playing free-for-all casually will kind of tweak things just to like fit their play group. That's what happens when multiplayer games are usually more casual. But yeah, that is actually the whole play sheet. It's very in depth, but very clear, very concise. I like that they made it very casual friendly. I'm curious to see what people do with the cards as we see them. I'm excited to finally look at all the beta cards. And then I'm especially excited for the first set to be getting previewed sometime next year. But the next video we do will hopefully be a full preview of the beta cards, however many there are. Hopefully that doesn't take too long. I don't think this video is too long. We did go over a lot of stuff. I'm excited. Honestly, my only criticism that actually means anything to me is just the 2-color deck restriction. I just don't like being restrained. Let me be weird. let me make a terrible 6-color deck. I like it can't be good. But I'm excited. I'm excited to get the beta product next year when they start getting shipped. A reminder that if you weren't able to pre-order one, you should definitely check with your local game stores to see if they were selected to run beta events. If you are near any of the Bandai Card Fest that are happening at the end of the year, if they still have tickets, you should definitely go and make me very jealous. But we're going to call it here for this video. I hope everyone had a fun time learning the rules along with me. Seems like a good time, seems like a fun game. Starting off fairly simple, but I can only imagine how complex and interesting the game will get as it develops within the first year or two. But I hope everyone has a good time. I hope you're having a good life, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye bye.